Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Totalbiscuit. Back from MLG, still a little bit sick, so my apologies for the nasal voice right here, but I have for you something rather interesting. We're going to be taking a look at Insurgency 2. Those of you who've been paying attention, or were paying attention back in the day to source mods, should know about Insurgency, because it was kind of a big deal back then. So Insurgency 2 is on its way. This is a build of that, and I am joined by Jeremy Blum, who is going to be talking us through this particular title in its current state. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
No problem whatsoever, as one of your devs shoots me in the face. Okay, so tell me about Insurgency 2, and then we'll go into the details and the differences between this and the original mod.
Yeah, absolutely. So, first of all, this is an alpha. This is a pretty early version of the game. Insurgency 2 is a focused, competitive, infantry-based combat experience, so we don't really have many drivable vehicles or anything like that in the game. The theme is loosely based on real-world events that took place and have been taking place in Iraq, Afghanistan, and Somalia. The primary focus of the game is intense firefights. We have an emphasis on lethality, the control of vantage points, and the protection of supplies. And to intensify the firefights in the game, we have features such as suppression blurring, supersonic bullet snaps, things that make it very difficult to be under fire. We have useful tactical options in the game, such as prone, leaning, changing the rate of fire. And we have a very natural weapon behavior in the game, where you can aim independently of where you're looking with the free aim. Weapons behave very powerfully, so you can drop people very easily. Bullets are very powerful. And we have 3D scope optics in the game, which is a cool sort of system where the optics zoom in and the outside don't. We have a team-based weapon upgrading system, which is a kind of a different way of doing weapon upgrades, where if you achieve an upgrade, it upgrades that weapon for your whole team as opposed to just yourself.
All right.
And our levels, as opposed to some of our perhaps competitors out there, our levels are definitely a lot more focused compared to other realism games. The maps are relatively small, the run-up times are relatively quick, and it's not very easy to get lost.
All right, fair enough. Well, that's a big dump of info, so we can certainly make a start on that. Although, first things first, just the first thing I noticed, I think, when getting into this game is those are some bloody big gun models you've got right there. Do you want to explain why?
Yeah, absolutely. So, free aim is one of the features in our game where you can basically move your weapon around freely without actually moving your camera. It prevents people from, putting a crosshair, a dot in the middle of their screen, and you don't always absolutely know where your bullet's going to go. It's based on when your weapon is pointing. And the reason why our weapons are, larger on the screen compared to, what people might wonder about, is because, we still want to, even though we have this free aim area, we still want to allow people to freely shoot without using their iron sights with relative ease. And with the weapon sort of larger on the screen and in a position where you can sort of see where it's angled, it allows you to have a better idea of where you're shooting if you're not in iron sights.
You see, now that actually does make sense. That would have been a complaint from me, but it's a good reason and rationale, actually. I'm just looking at it right now, and I'm actually going to demonstrate this for the audience. I'm going to try and aim with what appears to be, I think this looks like a Mauser rifle or something along those lines. Just kind of shoot in this direction. You'll notice the weapon is pointing in the direction that the bullet is going, even though I'm not aiming down iron sights. And, of course, I have no crosshair, because this is a fairly realistic game. So there you go, folks. You can see clearly the reason for that. Alright, now, if I'm coming into this game as a player that has played the hell out of Insurgency, enjoyed it a lot, what differences am I going to expect to see?
You're going to expect to see much more focused maps and some new game modes. The core intensity of the game isn't going to change that much. I think the feel is a little bit better. We're basically taking strides to keep a lot of the core fundamentals of the game there, but sort of make the game more fun and more accessible to people. And we are going to have, a realism mode, some sort of mode that will, strip the game of any sort of user friendliness and really give the hardcore people what they really want.
Yeah, so like the idea of being able to see where your squad mates are on the screen, that was a bullet in the face, good lord, you die fast in this game, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Alright, makes perfect sense. Now, from a different perspective, let's say I'm coming in from a game like Call of Duty, for instance, and I'm looking at this and I'm saying, oh, right, okay, looks kind of like COD in the Source engine. So what do I have to expect? And more to the point, why should I consider this game as an option?
Well, you know, it still retains a lot of the competitive and fun factor from a game like that. You know, we don't bore people with long respawn times and sort of clumsy controls or anything like that. The game is still fundamentally rooted in first-person shooter mechanics. And coming from a game like Call of Duty, for instance, you'll find that the game is a lot more intense. You know, you're going to find yourself dying a lot more. You're also going to find yourself enjoying killing people a lot more because people are going to go down a lot quicker. And, you know, I don't think that transitioning from a game like that is actually that difficult, especially if you're open to trying something more realistic.
Certainly a reasonable argument as far as I'm concerned. Now talk to me a little bit about the game mode that we're playing right now.
So the game mode we're playing right now, it's called Occupy. It's based on King of the Hill. The way it works is that there's a center point of focus or a vantage point in the middle of the map, and both teams are trying to control it. It starts out at 50-50, if you can imagine, like 50% each team at the beginning of the round of control, so neutral basically. And as one team controls the center of the map, you know, the objective will turn red if it's your enemy, for instance, or green if it's your friendly. And whichever team has control of the occupy zone in the middle of the map at the end of the time limit, which in this case is 10 minutes, that team is the winner.
So kind of a King of the Hill style mode, yeah, certainly makes perfect sense. What kind of other modes are you going to be offering here, since you did point that out as a fairly big difference between this and the original? Yeah,
sure. We have 2 other game modes that we're definitely including, but I don't want to talk about them too much because they're still in the prototype phase. One of them is a sort of team elimination based mode, kind of like Counter-Strike or America's Army or something like that, where when you die you have to wait till the end of the round to respawn. So that'll be a little bit more of a tactical option. We also are going to work on a convoy escort / ambush game mode.
Okay. Yeah, because, I mean, when I'm looking at this, I'm getting kind of a Medal of Honor, at least a newer Medal of Honor kind of vibe, because that is very much based in the modern idea of Marines, and in this case, of course, contractors and security forces versus insurgents.
Right.
Okay, I'm going to grab myself an AK-47. I was actually doing very well with the sniper rifle there, interestingly enough, because I'm usually terrible with that. But...
So follow me, come this way.
Alright, let's head in. Yep, okay. I assume, are you Jeremy?
Yep.
Yes, you are. Excellent.
And you know how to sprint, and...
yes, I do.
And Q and E are lean left and lean right, by the way.
Nice to see that feature coming back.
And if you hit X, you could change your rate of fire.
Okay, so with an AK, I think we want to be going single shot.
And if you hit Z, you can go prone. Those are sort of the advanced features that you should know about.
Yeah. Yeah, certainly, very much that. It's not difficult to get into from the start, certainly, even though the game is obviously very crazy when it comes to its lethality. It does remind me a little bit of Red Orchestra, actually. If I recall correctly, you were involved in that game,
behind you.
Were you not?
Oh.
Ah! You know, doing an interview and trying to pay attention. And I decided to play it on special hardcore mode with no sound because we can't do that with the recording setup we've got here. Yeah, that makes it a little bit tricky. But yeah, you were actually involved in Red Orchestra, right?
Yeah, I was the original project lead on Red Orchestra back when it was still a mod for Unreal Tournament 2003. Around the time that it was entering the Make Something Unreal contest, which it eventually won. I was not at all involved in any of the retail versions of the game.
Sure. Alright, that makes perfect sense. I have got to say, the thing that has really impressed me thus far is the way that these optics actually work, because very few games manage to pull this off.
And that's the end of the round.
Yes, it is indeed. So I'll be going to another one very shortly. So, tell me why exactly you guys decided to focus on the optics, because this actually seems to be kind of a flagship feature. It's something that you can put up there and say, other FPSs just don't do this. When Battlefield 3 came out, there was actually quite a lot of controversy, I suppose, from some people that said, oi, what's up with this? This isn't realistic. So... was that part of your decision to actually go with a more realistic optics model?
Yeah, I mean, you know, we all really like it. You know, we think it's really cool, and it was already there, to be honest, in the first Insurgency. So it's not really so much of a feature that we added specifically for this one. It's more of a feature that we couldn't not add back, you know, keep basically.
Yeah, because obviously that would have annoyed people somewhat, to say the least. Ooh, that was a close one. Where is he? Where's he gone? Well, there's an awful lot of bullets coming in my general direction, which means someone definitely doesn't like me. I think... Did I get him? Yep, I believe I did. Wonderful. That's what I like to see. Alright. Now I'm trying to focus on making sure that I don't die as I come up with my next question. It's an interesting interview format we like to do here on Cynical Brit, just making it things a little bit interesting. I like to call it the danger interview. Oh, there we go. Taken out, sadly. Now, you actually have a kill cam in this game. Now, needless to say, this is an alpha version of the game. Is that something you intend to keep in the final version?
Yeah, you know, probably not in our realism mode when we do that. But in the main primary way of playing in the game, we are going to keep some sort of kill cam. It may not be this exact kill cam, but you know, one of the problems with the first Insurgency was, you know, you might be familiar if you ever played it, but people would wander around the map aimlessly for like a really long period of time, and then they would kind of just get shot out of nowhere and not have any idea where they got shot from, and it would be like instantaneous, and you know, then they'd have to wait to spawn. It was somewhat of a frustrating experience a little bit, especially for people that, you know, never played the game before. And you know, as part of allowing people to actually get into this game, part of that is sort of telling them, you know, where they died from. So that definitely is something that we are gonna keep in some way.
It certainly makes sense. You've got a very focused, a very focused map here. Someone guns me down horribly. So, not having too many problems finding people, but one assumes, since this is a test version, you're looking to maybe have some larger maps. Although, I have to wonder just how large a map can you really get in a game where you're looking to have intensive, focused firefights. In relation to the other maps that you've got coming in this game, how large is this?
I would say that this would qualify as a small map, and then we're going to have medium-sized maps that are maybe 150 to 200% the size, but they're going to be designed differently because our larger maps are going to be for our convoy mode, and they're going to be semi-linear in nature, but long. You know, so there's not going to be way too many routes that you can go that'll just, you know, confuse people. It'll be focused and you know, somewhat, and still remain that direct nature.
Yeah, certainly, that makes sense. Now, let's talk a little bit about the bullets, because whenever we see a modern military shooter, there are a couple of different crowds, I think, and two of the loudest are, we want the ability to go aim down sights, hold down the button, and bullet hose somebody to death, and we want to do that with hit-scan weapons that feel nice and satisfying. And there are others that say, we want realistic projectile physics, so we want to be able to accurately shoot someone taking into account the way the bullet drop works, and the fact that bullets are not laser beams. Which direction have you gone with in this game?
In this game, we do have like the hit scan method. I personally am a pretty big fan of the ballistic projectile method, especially with larger games, with larger environments. With our game being the scale that it is, there's really no point of fudging with what works with Source Engine. You know, we really have something that feels really good right now, and we wouldn't want to potentially ruin it by trying to implement a complex ballistic system.
Alright, fair enough. Now, this is a game that is using the Source Engine. The Source Engine is just getting, I would say, just you know, a smidge out of date. Not a huge amount, but it's an old engine, and there are other engines that look better. So I've got to ask, why choose the Source Engine?
Well, you know, to be honest, we don't have the version we're working with isn't that old. You know, it's dated back to last year. It's the Portal 2 version of Source Engine. So it's actually fairly advanced. It's come a long way since we worked on the mod 5 years ago. And, you know, with choosing Source, it was kind of an obvious choice for us because we had already developed the mod on Source Engine. So if we were going to port it and then, you know, not include some features and add new features, it makes the most sense, obviously, to do it on Source Engine instead of recreating the game from scratch.
Yeah, it certainly does. But that leads nicely into my next question. And this is something I always wonder from guys that decide, well, you know what, we made a mod and it was successful, and now we want to make a full-on standalone release. How on earth do you convince people that the mod, which was free, should now essentially be paid for?
Well, you know, I think that we've come a really long way since the mod. I think the mod was way more amateur looking and feeling than than what we're working on now. And the mod was worked on by a whole bunch of people that were doing it in their spare time for free, and we weren't making any money off of it. With this game, we have employees, we have contractors, we have a lot of staff, that are professionals at what they do working on this game. So, we really couldn't make this a free game, we have to monetize it somehow.
Yeah, certainly. Working for free is, quite frankly, an unrealistic thing indeed, and some people don't seem to realize that. Lord knows, but hey. Well, you actually went to Kickstarter with this. Now, once again, an interesting move. I always ask anyone that goes to Kickstarter, why? Especially when you've got a big playable version like this. So why Kickstarter?
Well, when you're talking to publishers, it's sometimes a tough dialogue, because they like the game, but, they want a lot from you. And the idea, with going with Kickstarter was that hopefully we'd be able to get this thing done without giving up too much, getting supported by the fans instead of by someone with money who is going to take everything.
Yeah, I suppose that certainly makes sense. Now, the amount of money you're asking for, not a huge amount, actually. It's, if I recall correctly, it was in the $160,000 range?
It was 180, yeah. And it has to do directly with how much our budget is, every month, how much we spend, combined with how many months we foresee development taking. And at this point in time, we're not extremely far. We're only 60,000 into the campaign, and we're still hoping for the best at this point. And even if we are unsuccessful, we will find ways to turn this into an opportunity.
Yeah, the problem is if you don't succeed with Kickstarter, then you may need to find funding from a publisher, and they may require you to compromise this vision.
Yeah, but maybe we will at least be able to get a better publishing structure, or we'll be able to find an investor finally that's willing to step up, that isn't necessarily a publisher, and they'll just let us do things how we want.
That's certainly the hope, at any rate. I think the relationship between developer and publisher has been explored quite a bit over the last year or so. I feel the gaming community has got an awful lot more aware, but they also seem to now view the publisher as the enemy. I think the publisher is always blamed as the guy that comes in with the money and wants to ruin everything. I mean, what is your experience, actually, with publishers? I know you primarily worked on mods, but what are your opinions on the current way that the developer and publisher relationship operates within the PC space?
Well, I think especially in the PC space, everybody's sort of shifting away from publishers. I think that there's certain publishers out there that are finding a way to sort of be successful with the digital market. But there's a lot of publishers that aren't really adapting to that. They want to stick with the retail model, and they want to put millions into a project and gamble on it, basically. And personally, I worked at THQ, Chaos Studios in Manhattan, and one thing I noticed while I was there was that, wow, this place has way more money than they probably need for this game. And there's no way I foresee this game actually making all this money back. That's what was going on in my head anyway.
Yeah, that certainly makes a lot of sense. You sink a lot of money into marketing campaign. Obviously, Chaos Studios, well, there are two games that were actually heavily marketed. One, of course, being Homefront, which, well, there's a sequel on the way, but it was not exactly a well-received game. One wouldn't really call Homefront successful.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think the first one, the Frontlines Field War, that's the one that I was there for. Yeah. I mean, that one was, even worse. I think Homefront was all right.
Yeah, in multiplayer it was. The single player, as far as I'm concerned, needs to be tossed down a well, but I actually enjoyed the multiplayer for the most part. I think that when it comes to Frontlines, and we'll come back to Insurgency 2 in a moment, of course, I think Frontlines had a lot of really good ideas, but never really managed to implement all of them all that well, so it ran itself into a little bit of a rut there, unfortunately, in terms of its gameplay. But back to Insurgency 2 for a little while. I've got to ask, how much are you planning on charging for this game upon release?
We're looking at about the $15 range, plus or minus, depending on the demand and how much, money we get to sink into this thing.
Fair enough. Well, I then have to ask then, with all of these free-to-play shooters around, can you explain, why someone would pay $15 for a shooter when they can get TF2 for free, for instance?
Well, I mean, this is a much different experience than that, and I mean, there are, free-to-play options out there that might be somewhat similar to this, but I don't think there's anything that's quite like this in the free-to-play sphere. And you know, the one thing about free-to-play is you have that whole imbalance issue. You have people that are going to be, you know, having crazy different, you know, upgrades and primary weapons and stuff. It's going to be an unbalanced battlefield, if you will. The thing that we're trying to push really hard with Insurgency that we think is sort of gonna make this game good, you know, is the fact that it's competitive and it's balanced. You know, at the beginning of every round, people are going to be relatively balanced. You know, the primary weapons are going to be upgraded throughout the round, as opposed to people having all sorts of different primary weapons when the round starts. So with that being said, you know, we have something that allows a clean slate at the beginning of each round, and that's something that you absolutely can't have in a free-to-play game.
Well, we certainly haven't seen an example of that anyway, aside from TF2, which I think TF2 is a weird example. People always point to, so, oh, it can be entirely successsul. Free-to-play can just be totally cosmetic. Like, but it never started as free-to-play. I mean, TF2 was a retail game for years, and at the end of the day, it's also pushed by Valve, and I think that's a little bit of a different situation for any other game and developer and indeed publisher, of which Valve were, of course, both. But regardless, aren't you still a little bit concerned? What you're offering right here is a realistic shooter offering, and you're going to be asking $15 for it. Do you really think that gamers are interested in something like that at the moment?
Yeah, you know, I am confident that by the time that we ship, that $15 will be the right price point for this. You know, it might not be. You know, we might feel at that point in time that maybe this is a $10 game and we need to put it out for that. You know, ultimately, at the end of the day, if it were up to me, you know, I would put this game out for free. You know, that is how I've developed games, or you know, with the people I've worked on with these games in the past, is, you know, we've developed free games that we want people to just be able to play and not have to pay for. And you know, if the opportunity presents itself, you know, we'll get the game out, you know, so that we can make money off of it, and then you know, maybe at that point we'll be able to make it free, you know, free to play, kind of like Team Fortress 2 did. You know, I wouldn't be opposed to something like that.
That's fair enough indeed. At the end of the day, it's a job, and you've got to get paid for it, especially if you happen to be working particularly hard. We're going to push forward a little bit here and try and do something. I'm getting absolutely slaughtered here, which is, needless to say, not that surprising. It actually reminds me of the first time I tried to play Red Orchestra 2, and that was a massacre. It was me versus a lot of very dedicated beta testers. It didn't go well. Yeah,
you gotta use the flanks. You gotta sort of learn the routes in the map. So
certainly, and work with your team, which is something I can't do while interviewing. Certainly, or I can't even hear a thing. So hello. What the heck just happened there? Something exploded. It was wonderful, but
that was an RPG.
Oh dear. Well, it certainly did the job. Running around wielding an RPG is going to cause some problems one way or the other. But what was I going to say? Yes, Red Orchestra. I've completely lost my train of thought, which is what happens when you're very tensely trying to survive in an environment where one bullet is gonna kill. Yeah, just like that. Thanks, guy. Oh, well, it happens. But as you pointed out, actually, the fact that you respawn quite quickly is a nice compromise, I feel, between the fact that it's a super realistic game. You die really fast. That is something that's been happening in games like Counter-Strike, and it's definitely something that happened in Red Orchestra. You die, you're dead for a while. It gets really frustrating to new players, and, of course, while it's very skillful and very tense, you have a tendency of scaring a lot of people away like that, and this is a deliberate compromise that you've made for that reason, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we want to keep this game intense and realistic, and really, you know, try and scare people while they're playing as much as we can. But we don't want to force people to really suffer from their mistakes.
Yeah, you prefer that people actually learn from them.
Right.
Now, something I didn't actually ask, I did notice, and the viewers will have seen in a previous round, that we did get an upgrade for primary weapon. We actually ended up with a red dot sight, which was absolutely fantastic. How does the upgrade system actually work? So
we're still evolving how our upgrading system is going to work eventually, but as of right now, the way it works is it's directly related to the capture area. So if you're in the capture point for 30 seconds right now, it'll give you the option of upgrading your primary weapon, and upon accepting that upgrade, it'll apply it to your entire team. Okay. So that's the way it works right now. It's entirely based around the objective. It has nothing to do with how many kills you're getting or anything like that.
That certainly makes sense. Right. Well, sadly, we are not doing so well here. It's probably me, no doubt, dragging the team down, as I have a tendency to do.
Oh, wow. The teams are kind of imbalanced.
Yeah. Actually, in our favor at the moment, yeah. Although, oh, my God, I'm 1 to 5 KD. This is embarrassing. It really, really is. But that's what you get for not being able to hear a damn thing. Oh, God, he's going to kill... No. No. I can see his shadow, at least. There we go. Hip fire. What a wonderful thing.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I don't like it when games force you into iron sights. Like, don't get me wrong, you know, iron sights should be the way. Look to your right.
Yeah, I had one dead ahead of me. In fact, actually, someone just picked me off from that. That little area is nasty. I pick up the sniper rifle solely to kill the guy that's standing up there.
Yeah.
I also noticed am I correct in saying that the map is actually asymmetrical?
It's actually not completely symmetrical, but it's pretty close.
Fair enough. I'm trying to find our sniper vantage point, but there's now RPG shooting at me, so you know what? I'm gonna focus on that instead for a little while. Alright, maybe I could make a dash over here to this cover.
Oh.
Yeah, that's where he usually is. Is it possible to zoom the sniper rifle in anymore?
No, it's got 1 level of zoom.
Or just 1 level of zoom? Alright. I'll just have to be precise then. I'm not sure if that's a bullet hole or someone's head. Well, that's definitely someone's head. Come on, me beauty. Oh wow, quite a lot of screen shake going on there. So the suppression system, we haven't seen a huge amount of it, mostly because I die too quickly, but needless to say, in a squad-based firefight, the suppression system's actually going to matter just a little bit more. And is that a similar suppression system to what we've been seeing in games like Battlefield 3 and, of course, Red Orchestra?
Well, it's actually a entirely blur-based, so it just blurs out your whole screen depending on how intensely under fire you are. And the different classes in the game are light, standard, and heavy, which determine your speed, armor, ammo capacity, and also your resistance to suppression. So if you're heavy class, you'll be more resistant to suppression, and if you're light class, you'll be suppressed a lot easier.
Fair enough. Now, on a map of this size, I've got to ask, does the light class really actually give you enough advantages to justify not having that extra protection?
Yeah, I mean, you know, it depends on your playstyle. A lot of people prefer to play quick, you know, and to be able to move fast and flank around people, you know, use close quarter combat weaponry like shotguns and submachine guns and stuff. And, you know, the light class offers a good opportunity to do that. I will say that the way that we are doing this is that you can actually be light class and you can use whatever weapon you want. So, you know, if you want to be light class and rock a machine gun, you know, you have that option if that's the unique play style you want to go for.
We just to see if anyone actually manages to rock that. Although, I guess it would give you the opportunity to get in position and actually deploy that bipod a little bit quicker. Allow you to maneuver yourself around the place, so it is an option.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, you know, with 3 different classes and 6 different weapon types per team, you know, that's 6 times 3, that's 18 sort of different, very unique gameplay styles that you could go for.
Certainly. Well, our team is quite frankly getting their asses handed to them, and it's most likely all my fault. I feel horrible for that.
Here, come this way. Let's go left. Come from behind them.
Sounds like a good idea. Knowing the map is always helpful.
Oh, and then
let's try that. Yeah, let's try that again in this round. Let's try and do a round where we essentially stick together and see how that ends up turning out. Because so far, it's not been going all that well for our team.
Yeah, that sounds good. I would suggest for what we're about to do to grab an assault rifle, like an M16.
Assault rifle. Yep, sure. That works totally fine for me. All right, M16 it will be. Yep. Yoink. Alright, where are you?
I'm right. Let's see, where are you?
Yeah, I've got you. I've
got me?
you.
Okay.
Yeah, you're right there.
Yeah, so let's go around this way.
Okay.
What class are you, by the way?
I actually have no idea how to.
Look in the lower left corner, security.
Security standard.
Standard. Okay, yeah. So you're the medium class essentially, which is our base. I would definitely suggest trying the heavy, trying the light, and just so you could demonstrate to people sort of the difference.
Sure. Try and do that after this death, which will happen. It's one of the inevitabilities we must accept. So no one's coming behind us. No, good. Slowly advance.
Got one by the helicopter.
Ooh, that was close.
Oh.
Where'd the fire come from?
I'm not sure. The helicopter.
Alright, roger that.
But they come from your left too, so be careful.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, he's right up there. Good lord, didn't see him at all. Alright, let's give it another try.
We can go the other way this time.
Sure.
Always good to switch it up,
Yeah, I don't want to keep going from the same direction only to be mowed down. Never a good idea.
Got some floating planks. Oh.
Alpha is alpha. Oh, nicely picked off. Good on the left.
So let's go up these stairs right here.
Sure.
I'll cover you.
Alright.
Alright.
Up the stairs.
And there's a nice little perch up here overlooking the objective. You want to get this kill? There's a guy down there.
Okay, I don't see him.
You don't see him? He's crawling.
He's hiding.
You don't see his legs? Oh.
Oh.
he
He saw me first. I didn't see him.
You didn't
I genuinely
see him?
didn't.
Okay.
Yeah, I saw it there. I thought, oh, hang on, is that a person or is that one of those pieces of paper kind of
All right,
rolling across the map?
This time, maybe grab an SMG, grab a MP5, and let's actually just like rush the objective and like cover each other.
Sure. I'm gonna switch to light first before we do that.
Sure.
Give myself a little bit extra speed. All right.
So let's go this way. And the main thing is like before you pop out in the open, you want to like kind of look out the the window or door or whatever it is that you're about to pop out of, and just sort of like check every sector, see if you can spot anyone. Like I just took someone out before you go through the door, and then when you do go through the door, you run to cover as fast as you can, and basically just go from cover to cover. And there's a guy to your right, or at the helicopter.
At the helicopter?
Yeah.
Okay. I took a little bit of suppression fire there. Yeah, I can definitely see where the bullets are coming from. Just trying to get in a position so I actually hit him. Yeah, I see
there.
him.
Got one of them.
Yeah. Well, there's the suppression system in action as I get fairly heavily blurred, and we are actually having something. Oh, hello, this guy right behind us.
Where? Oh, yeah.
He's right.
I got him.
Yep, you got him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see what you mean by a firefight going on here. We're slowly advancing, trying to cover each other as angles, make sure we don't get flanked. Where did that? Oh my god, I am blurry as all hell. There's a lot of bullets coming in this direction. Where are those bullets coming from? Looked like they were coming from here.
There's a guy prone inside the helicopter.
Oh, ah! And there's a guy in the sniping position by the looks of it.
Yeah, so I'm, let's see.
I want to engage from a bit of a distance here, I think.
Okay, yeah. I mean, this sniper spot up top is good, but everybody knows that you're going to be there because it's like the main spot. I would suggest if you're going to snipe, come down here, actually.
Okay.
Down here. I would kind of crouch by this doorway right here, and like inch around, like lean around the corner and stuff.
And try to pick it off.
Try and pick off people because you're a lot less likely to be spotted in this spot. You can always move up a little bit if like you want to get a little bit of a better spot, but you should be able to see people from that angle.
Yep, I've got nothing so far. Oh, hello! Just went right in front of me. Didn't pick him off though. Can I get behind him? Yes, I can, but he was ready for me. Ah, these guys are so much better at this than I am. That's what we get for having devs and beta testers, I guess.
Yeah, we play this game quite a bit.
I can tell. It's definitely fun, though. That's perhaps the most important thing. I think, as you pointed out accurately, when you have a very, very low time to kill, and your shots are most likely lethal is genuinely satisfying.
You're
as opposed
right.
to having a bullet sponge. Yeah, I saw a guy that... Oh, yeah, he's right there. I don't know if I can actually get him from here. Oh, hang on. I've got grenades, don't I? Do I?
Yep.
Oh,
and you could, if you...
Oh, not as the light class, I don't.
Oh, yeah, the light class doesn't right now.
Okay, well, I'm just going to have to rely on my inferior shooting skills. Well, he's not there anymore. Where'd he go?
Let's see. I got him. He was prone in the corner, camping. It's always nice to kill campers.
Indeed it is, although, you know, this is, you know, the kind of game where camping is certainly preferred. I'm trying to knife this guy. I've hit him like 4 times and he won't die. He's actually just ignored me completely.
Oh, really? Was he crouched or prone by any chance?
I believe he was, actually.
Yeah, it's a little...
Take it that a problem with the alpha.
Yep. Work in
There's
progress.
alpha, folks. Oh, there's another one down. Oh, I'm in a great spot here. I just need to try and stay alive in it. Oh, no. There we go. Someone got around the side of me. At least I think he did. Well, it was a better effort. 2 to 6 KD. I evidently suck at this game, but regardless, what kind of release date are we looking for this now? And I actually suppose it's affected by whether or not the Kickstarter is successful.
Yeah, of course. You know, we don't have a release date set in stone, but definitely sometime next year, I will say.
Sometime next year, we're looking... Well, I mean, it's a Source Engine game. Of course, we're looking for a Steam release. That would be rather silly if we weren't.
Yeah, definitely.
Yep, and if you want to check it out, well, as of the time of this recording, I believe there's about 11 days left on your Kickstarter. So I'm not sure when this video goes out, hopefully very, very soon indeed. So there is a Kickstarter link in the description below this video. And can you tell people about any of the benefits they might get if they decide to Kickstart?
Yeah, I mean, for $15 they get the game. For $20 they get it a week early. $50 will get you into our beta when that starts, which if we do reach our minimum, will hopefully be, you know, not in the too distant future. Alpha access is actually available for $360, which will also get a picture of you somewhere in the game. So it's somewhat of an elusive reward, and that's the reason why we priced it so high. Is we don't want too many people in our alpha test. We want to keep it small. So that's really our more exclusive option there.
Yeah. Always the way with Kickstarters. Every now and again, you know, there will be some ridiculously exclusive options that most people don't go for, but hardcore supporters certainly can. I really want to kill someone with this RPG before I end this interview. That's going to happen one way or the other.
They're probably capturing the helicopter right now. Just shoot it right down there.
Hello, sir. Goodbye.
Nice.
Yes, there we go. Got to a nice position just to shell the helicopter. Very, very cool indeed.
You can drop down and cap if you wanted to.
I'm going to stay here in a supporting position.
That's fine. I'll cap. You can cover me.
Hello. Okay. I saw him, but I wasn't able to bring my RPG up quick enough to actually kill him. Turns out RPG versus M16 in an accuracy war isn't really much of a contest.
Yeah, our RPG doesn't even shoot properly right now. It's a little bugged.
Well, I managed to kill someone with it, so it evidently isn't that bad.
I would just suggest not using the iron sights because they're not accurate.
Hip firing an RPG. That's what I'm talking about. That's what you want. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is a good in-depth look at many rounds of me failing horribly at Insurgency 2 right now. Please do go and check out the website and, of course, the Kickstarter if you happen to be enthralled by look at this particular FPS. Links are, as always, in the description below this video. Jeremy Blum, thank you very much for showing me the game, getting grilled about the game, and taking part in one of our danger interviews once again.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, and thanks to all the listeners out there.
No problem whatsoever. Ladies and gentlemen, Insurgency 2. If a realistic shooter tickles your fancy, this might be up your alley. Go on, have a look. My name's been Totalbiscuit. I will see you next time.